Okay, I remember your debut very well. It was against St George, but you weren't getting told off at half-time. I think it was until over half-time you got on, and I remember that's because I scored a try, you got your boarding pass. Talk to me about your debut against St George and what you remember, because this is when the realisation of this dream actually happening, Motu.
Yeah, so I remember, going to the captain's run the day before the match, and David Miles had pulled out. He had a hamstring issue. So he was giving me a pat on the back saying, I've given you a chance to play this week.
I can see the glint in your eyes, man.
Yeah, so I thanked him for that. But the whole night I couldn't sleep. Trent Barrett was the opposing six. And I just had visions of Trent Barrett running over the top of me the whole night. But luckily, guys like yourself played well, scored tries. So I was able to come on the last, 8 minutes of the game. And there weren't too many people at the game. I think there was about 8,000. But to me, it felt like a full house. So I'm just glad that Clinton Toops passed me the ball, because Clinton doesn't pass that often. But one thing that he does remind me of, when he does pass it for you to score, he goes, I'll make you famous. I'll make you famous. So Toops made me famous that night.
If I remember you were this very confident young man that always wanted to show what he was about.
I think the trainings, our Warriors trainings, it was a competition, every day. No one wanted to be the guy who was getting laughed at or getting mocked in the change room after training. So, all the games that we played, for training, we wanted to show who was the man at training. And, we had a competitive group, yourself, Clinton Toops, Francis Melly, Henry. So it was always a chance to showcase what you had. And I didn't want to be that guy that was getting mocked after training because he had a bad training session.
You want to be that guy that mocks us old guys because you stepped us and have a lot of fun. You mentioned that you always wanted to put on a show and you wanted to put people on notice. And I remember multiple times when you would do that and Ando would be laughing out loud, absolutely loving it. What did you like about Ando?
At first, Daniel was very sort of supportive, and he liked, us being brash. He liked us, showing up the older guys in the team. But he was a coach that taught you things, and we were always wanting to learn each and every day, and he drove that. So that's why I enjoyed playing for Daniel.
Think about Ando. Kempe was huge. Recently out of the game, a guy that you sort of also wanted to play for. Those two were a good combination.
Yeah, Kempe played a big part in that 3-year period where we made the finals consecutively, because he was able to connect with the Kiwi boys. He was fresh out of the game. He was a Kiwi also, played for the Kiwis. So I think that's what helped the transition. You had Daniel, who was quite hard-nosed and from Australia, and then you had that Kiwi touch with Kempe there.
We went away on the Kiwi tour 2002. You played over there, and was there something early on where you thought you wanted to stay?
Yeah, I had a contract to go to the Leeds Rhinos, when we're in the UK. So I came back from the UK tour and I said to the Warriors, I want to go to
Mate, you're meant to be there playing for the Kiwis in your country and you're over there trying to get some work done.
Yeah, I know.
The pound used to say 3 times table.
Yeah, that's right, 3 times table at that time, when the pound was 3 New Zealand dollars. But I'd grown up watching, the Super League or, the Challenge Cup games, watching the great Wigan teams that had Graham Lowe coaching and all the Kiwis playing for them. So the Super League or the UK game was the comp that I always wanted to play in before the, the Winfield Cup as it was back then.
Yeah, because you start mentioning some of the names that came into it. Because first of all, you planted that seed in Daniel's head, and was he like, no, you're staying? What happened? Was there trying to be a swap or a transfer?
Yeah, so they wouldn't let me go at first. They said that, they asked me why, because we've just finished 2 very good years, come back of a NRL grand final. But I just wasn't happy, because I had come from playing for Marist into an environment where I wasn't familiar with in terms of, when you're a professional athlete, every day is a competition and you're trying to get your spot over someone else. You're also trying to earn good money as a footballer. And I wasn't used to that. I was a bit naive. So I wanted to enjoy my footy, and I saw the UK game as being that environment for me. So, initially they said no when I asked if they would let me go, and then I got informed that they asked for a player swap, so they wanted Keith Senior to come to the Warriors, and then they'll let me go. But Keith Senior is a legend of the UK game, so I'm not surprised that Lee said no.
Yeah. Well, it's a straight swap, mate. Legend for another legend. What was your mindset back then? Because whether it be in training, whether it be on the field, you just wanted to show people what you were about, man.
I just love training. I love competing, and my mum would always ask me a question you know, after games, you know, was I scared in that game? You know, so that was her way of critiquing my performance. So I just didn't want my mum to ever say that I was scared. You know, they used to say, you know, I was scared or I was unfit. So I didn't want them to say I was scared. You know, I don't mind them saying I'm unfit, but scared I didn't want them to say at all. So that's why I sort of, you know, relished the big games and the big opportunities, because I didn't want to be scared of them.
You mentioned the big games. You played in 3 of the biggest games in the club's history. Let's go back to 2002. Big game where the pressure is on. It was against Cronulla. Talk to me about that week. Talk to me about the themes and what was going through your mind as a team, and then obviously the big moment for you, the meat pie.
Yeah, for me it was, we had played Canberra the week before, or 2 weeks before, sorry. We won that home semi, and then that gave us a week off, and then leading into the Cronulla game. And I remember that game, the Canberra game, I wasn't, you know, part of the 17 really. And I remember Daniel walking past me when I was in the gym, and it was just me and him in that gym. And he would walk past me and he goes, the window of opportunity is that big. Being a Samoan kid from South Auckland, I had no idea what he meant by that. So that's what he said to me. And then luckily I started, you know, the Canberra game and went well. The team went well. And then I got another opportunity. So the Cronulla game, I didn't even know if I was playing or not. That was just the environment at that time, eh? But some of the, you know, quotes and sayings he would have, I didn't understand at all, and I thought I was quite smart. So, but that Cronulla game, I just remember everybody writing us off. And you know, the try that I scored, thanks to my old teammate Paul Malloy, I had kicked the ball, and that was from that scrum, and it just stayed in the field of play. So I was more relieved that the ball didn't go out on the full, and then that try, some things just happened. And I think that's one of the best games of football that's ever been played, really. It was just to and fro. You know, they were the favourites, and I remember that game. So, you know, I think Paul Gallen and I are the same age. So Paul Gallen, throughout that whole game, when we got in front, he was saying to me the whole game, we're coming to get you, we're coming to get you. And then, you know, they ran out of time, and then at the end of the game, you know, he's in tears. But he had a fantastic career.
And you didn't say, where were you? You didn't use that moment?
No.
Window of opportunity there, Motu?
Yeah, I didn't want to use any moment, and luckily I didn't, because he's a pretty handy boxer, isn't he, old gal?
He sure is. Now, okay, let's talk about the big dance, the first time ever in the club's history. What was it like to actually be in the boots on the field?
Man, that week was a crazy week, you know. So we'd beat Cronulla, and then we came home. And when we came home, you know, we'd never seen so many people at the airport. And that was, you know, a shock for us, because we'd been in Australia and, you know, we thought another win and gear up for the grand final. But when we came home, the airport was packed. And I remember Mark Tukey, you know, we'd told our team to stay together, but Mark Tukey loves an audience, doesn't he? He loves an audience. So instead of staying together, he went up by himself, and he was giving it the big ones, like the big, you know, arm up like he's a wrestler, signing autographs. And he used to put his number too. He used to put number 10, I think it was. So that, you know, those are some of the funny memories. But the game, it just came around real quick, you know. Grand final breakfast, and then for me it was like, geez, we're playing again. So, you know, and that's something that's commonly said by guys that play in the GF, is how fast the week goes. So, and that was the same for myself.
A year later, against the Hare Bears, you know, we find ourselves against Penrith to get into the grand final. Talk to me about what you remember of that game.
Yeah, we had some dominance over the Panthers, 2001, 2002, some big wins against them. But 2003, you know, they were different. You know, you had the Hare Bears, you know, Tony Puletua, Joe Ngalavao, and they had sort of come of age, and I think they were sick of losing, because they had won the Wooden Spoon a couple of years before. And they were a different side. We couldn't beat them. And they were young like we were, but they had some experience here. So, you know, it's a year that I felt that we could have won the grand final. I think we're better prepared in 2003 than we were the year previously. But I remember Stacey carrying an injury, Brent Webb was carrying an injury, so just 2 key players, you know, they weren't 100% for us, and, you know, that sort of cost us a semi-final.
That would have been the last game in the Warriors' colours for you. How was that?
It was the last game, and it was an emotional one for me, because, you know, I wanted to go out winning a grand final, especially after we had lost the year before, but, you know, that it wasn't to be. So I was just grateful for the time that I had in that Warriors jersey, and to play with guys like yourself and Ali and Jerry, Sil. So I was more grateful and thankful that I had the chance to play for the Warriors.
3 years, you went back to back in the final series. Wonderful tries in terms of strike rate. Do you ever look back and think, geez, what if I stayed longer? I know the next year, 2004, wasn't a good year. Maybe that's because you left. But yeah, I mean, do you ever look back and think, geez, what if?
No, I don't, to be honest. I sort of look at that period as, man, what a great time to be at the Warriors and what a great time for rugby league in New Zealand. And when Ivan became head coach, because he was a friend of mine, I did sort of speak to him about coming back to the club when he was head coach. But,
wow.
you know, I was pretty happy and comfortable in the UK, and, you know, so it never eventuated, but we did have discussions about coming back to the club when he was the head coach.
What happened with you and Ando? Because, I mean, as you do with all coaches, everyone from outside there thinks that the coaches are fine, but it's like any working position. Sometimes you get in a relationship with a coach or a boss, and the chemistry is not right. And from a guy who loved you and used to always be out laughing, it wasn't until years later that you picked up their relationship. Yeah,
Daniel and I sort of fell out, you know. I was just young and brash, and also I just didn't, you know, I'm a type of person that if something's not quite right or if you're not treating me right, then I'll let you know. And being a young footballer, I don't think that comes across, you know, to coaches and members of the club. So I think that's why we butted heads, because I didn't like the way, you know, he was talking to myself or some of the other island boys, but I wasn't scared, you know, to tell him. So I would tell him, and but we had some good talent coming through as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, we had Brent Webb had come to the club, Lance Ohaya, Thomas Luluwai. So I guess that helped, you know, make the decision for me to move on.
Yeah.